Hey, my name is LaFayette-Boyd, and I live in Regina, Saskatchewan. I'm a retired social worker and the volunteer executive director of the Saskatchewan African Canadian Heritage Museum. And I've been in Saskatchewan, well, not all my life. I was born here in Saskatchewan. I lived in the United States and for a short time. But my father was born right here in Regina in 1907. His parents had come up from the United States, from Iowa in 1906. And they came to Regina first, and then he homesteaded out near the Rosetown area. My mom's side, her grandmother came in 1910 from Oklahoma, and her mother actually came from Illinois, I believe, from Missouri, St. Louis, Missouri. Because when my great grandmother came in 1910, in 1911, the government tried to pass a law that to restrict Blacks from coming to Saskatchewan or to Canada. And so I thought, well, they must have snuck across the border because I couldn't find them anywhere. But they came through New York. So I guess that's how they got here. I was did so many interesting things that I'd like to share, and mostly probably leave for my grandchildren. But I was a psychiatric nurse, and I was a social worker, and there's some real stories to tell there. Well, once I retired from social services, I did end up being an advocate for some social services families, and I'm still involved in advocacy for people that need assistance in dealing with the system. But I am a track athlete. I'm a track and field athlete. So I was involved in being the representative for Saskatchewan for Masters Track and Field, but I was able to pass that on to someone else. So now I'm just a competitor there. I also am involved with the Bob Adams Foundation. Bob Adams was a Olympian, one of our Saskatchewan Olympians. And so I'm a member of that organization also. When I was younger, with the Western Development Museum, going there and seeing the trains and different things. So that I just think about old artifacts sort of being there. And but now, with the dinosaurs in the Royal Saskatchewan Museum and things like that, there's that's the kind of things I think about what used to be. Well, it just happened. Someone asked my sister to get involved with this organization way back in 2005. And because it had to do with heritage and history, and I was the family genealogist, she volunteered me to help out. And I've been here ever since, because it is interesting to work on our history and heritage here in Saskatchewan. So, yeah. And my experience is it's really interesting to find out what's in the museums. I visited the Saskatchewan Baseball Hall of Fame in Battleford, and that was quite interesting. And sad to say, I haven't visited the Indian Head Museum, but I will get a chance this year. I'm definitely going out there because we're working on a project there with some of the former players. So that's there's a couple of them that are 90 years old living in California, and we've been in touch with them. So, but now that we have our own kind of virtual museum, I'm excited that we're going to be placing our displays in there. Like, we don't have any artifacts. We do have one that we may use someday, but and I guess that's why I'm not thinking about us having our own museum, because we don't have the artifacts. So I think this is really great to share it with all the other museums, because then everybody gets to see, not just people that might come to where our museum is. So that's what I really like about that. That's an interesting question, because when you say our culture, my culture is as a Canadian, because I grew up the only Black family in the area wherever we lived. So there, if you think about a culture, I think my grandmothers, because there were more Black people living up in the Battleford, North Battleford area, there was some culture maybe with food, because I remember having a bunch of the people visiting at our home when we lived in Rosetown, and everybody brought food. And one of the stews that was there had chicken feet in it. And when that was really how they cooked it, like my grandmother had grown up, she was born into slavery, although slavery had ended, but they in Texas, she was born in Texas, they hadn't told her that the slavery had ended their family. And so she was treated as a slave. She had scars on her back from the beating. So even after slavery ended, they still probably, that's how they had to live, with the scraps of what's left of the chicken, so that kind of thing. So there was some customs kind of thing there with the food. But I do think about in recent years, like at the Royal Saskatchewan Museum, have been more things the Indigenous people added, and I think that was really good. I appreciated that. Right now, what we really need is financial to have an executive director, a paid executive director that could devote their full time to it as a job, or even part-time, but that would be a job. I'm a volunteer and I have many other things going on in my life that it would really be good to have a employee responsible for the organization. One thing we would like is an office so that we could put all our displays in there, and if we needed a meeting, that's where we would go. But for us to share their stories so that we can get them in our virtual museum, that would be important. That is important. And at some point, we're finding out there have been more people of African descent throughout the province in the early days. And now there are more, of course, but so that probably will be reflected in museums as we go about.